Did you know Finland has over 180,000 islands? I think that's pretty amazing. Hey guys, this is Shebs from Shebs the Wanderer, helping you to wander, discover, explore. It's another edition of 15 Minutes where I get the chance to talk to someone else about their travels. My guest today is French traveller David. He's based in Spain at this current moment. He talks to me about his journey and how he has got to where he is now. He's taken some incredible photos which I will discuss with him in my chat. Hopefully you enjoy what he has to say. Hi David, thank you for joining me. How are you?
Hey Shabs, very good. Yourself?
Doing very good, thank you very much. It's another day to talk to someone about their travel, so it's always good. How's COVID been for you? How are things with you in general?
I work very much from home usually, so it didn't change much, but it cut a little bit on my travels. So I have to say it's been a few frustration, but for the past 2 weeks I've been able to come back home. So at the moment doing very good.
And whereabouts are you based?
In Barcelona, Spain.
Obviously, Spain was quite a hit,
Yeah.
a hit country. Do you think it's wise for people to travel once borders open, or should people wait for a couple of months to see how things go?
In terms of, I know that for example now they're reconfining some regions of Spain, so it definitely hasn't, like, COVID is not behind Spain or behind any European country, I'd say. So I wouldn't really recommend people to travel, except maybe locally or to try to avoid maximum contacts. But taking planes flying, for example, or taking crowded trains, I wouldn't recommend it.
That's what I think as well. I think if we've waited for this long and they're starting to get things back to normal now, why not just wait a couple more months, see how it goes, give it until maybe end of September, early October? Because what you don't want is going back to square one. I don't think anyone can sort of hack that for another 3 months or whatever. So my advice as well, exactly the same thing as you just said, wait for at least a couple more months. I know people are desperate to get away, give it at least another couple of more months. How did it all start for you then with the travel? Was it something that you did as a kid with your parents? How did it all begin for you?
Yeah, actually, I don't even remember my first travel. I have some flash as a very young age of Morocco, because this is where my parents used to travel when I was a kid, and I traveled since with them first, and then on my own, and then I expatriated myself a couple of times. And I started photography in my travels maybe 7 or 8 years ago. So wait, I've always traveled much. Like really, it's always been in my year planning.
As you said, your first trip would have been, as you said, it was at Morocco. You said that you can remember.
This is I'm talking about when I was maybe 3 or 4 years old. So it's
Wow.
really just flashed of markets and swimming pools. But the first real travel I can remember, I was much older. Because obviously during a certain time my parents stopped traveling because they had young kids.
Yeah.
And the first trip I can really properly remember is probably United States. I think I was about 12 or 13, and my younger brother was old enough, so my parents thought they could go on a road trip. And if I remember correctly, we went through Nevada, Utah, and Arizona, something like this, like in that region. And for a preteen, it's just perfect. You have like motels and burgers and theme parks in Las Vegas. So it was really a great experience that I actually remember. Obviously, if I did that whole trip again today, I would do it completely differently. But it's still like very good memories.
Which trip would you say got you really hooked? Would you say it was that trip in America, or would you say it was?
I'd say so. That's the first time I felt like I was like really like enjoying the adventure, like the going from a place to another and to see an amazing thing after another. It's a bit hard to answer with certainty because I like had a lot of dawning realization since was all the trips in Africa or in India. But I would say that's the first one that got me hooked into it. Yeah.
What is it that it appeals to you when you travel?
I'd say I travel for an experience, and I try. And this is obviously a point that I don't think I could ever reach. I try to look for authentic experience. The more I travel, and the less I tend to go in a beaten path and do things that like you can see everywhere, pictures you will see everywhere, and take the same pictures and go to the same places and eat the same food. I try to discover something that I didn't know existed, basically.
You started to, I mean, some of your photographies, by the way, I've seen. I mean, there's a picture of a gorilla that's in Uganda, or I can't
Correct.
remember which country it was. Is it Uganda? The picture of the gorilla in Uganda is unreal. I mean, it's probably one of the best pictures I've seen in a very long time. I mean,
Thanks.
where where did you get the eye for? I mean, did you take photography lessons? Did you do it in school? I mean, my fascination for photography is, I mean, I did a degree in art. You know, I did lots of photography, videography, but to see that and think to capture that image. I mean, where did you learn your craft?
I've been completely self. I opened studio with other photographers, so I could exchange on skills and on different ways of processing images and taking pictures. But I'm pretty much self-taught. I've done it for a long time, and it's been quite a difficult path to reach this level where I could do proper wildlife pictures. But I learned from YouTube like anything else.
Absolutely, that's the way to go forward these days, isn't it? And some of the places, as you said, you've been to Africa. What is it that is appealing to you about Africa? What is it that sort of thinks, oh, I want to go back and back and back?
I see, and this might be from my own culture, but I see Africa as the place where you still have authenticity, like it's still genuine, because you don't have as many tourists going there. Obviously, you have South Africa and Zanzibar or Victoria Falls, that is pretty touristy, but you still have a lot of places that are not crowded with tourism. So it always appeared to me as the most genuine place on the planet from a touristic or photographic point of view. I've been there for the first time maybe a little bit of 10 years ago to Togo, and it fascinated me because I mean, I was with a group of friends, and we were the only Westerners there, and that was the first time I felt like literally that I was living something that was a little bit exclusive and authentic. Since then, in 2008, I made a 6-month break in my day job in order to take time to properly travel in the way I was envisioning. And obviously, it was no surprise. I went back to Africa to do a road trip from Cape Town, South Africa, to Nairobi, Kenya. So we crossed 9 countries in 5 months, and that was really the experience we're looking for in terms of, as you mentioned, food, meeting people, seeing landscapes. I mean, we've seen amazing landscapes and wildlife in places that we've never heard about before, and that no one still have heard about in back home in Europe. So that was the longest trip there, and since then I came back a couple of times in Uganda, Mozambique, and most recently Uganda, where I stayed with my partner for 3 months during lockdown.
Africa, as a country itself, gets a lot of bad press, and you've probably seen the beauty of places where people just don't go to it. And I think that is what, as a traveler like yourself, is our job really, to educate people and get them to see a country in a different light. And I think as I said to you, some of your pictures, I mean, alone, it speaks volumes. So, actually, one question I want to ask you, actually, it's quite a specific question when it comes to zoos, because I don't specifically like zoos since I went to the safari, because seeing the animals free in the wild, and when you see them all caged up and they're, going around in circles, and when people say, oh, the animals are dangerous because, they'll attack you. Well, the reason why they're going to attack you is because they're in a confined space, and they're in a confined space for such a long time that, of course, they're going to try and break out. If you stick a human being in a prison, they're going to try and break out, aren't they? So, but when I went to the safari for the first time, we went near like the lions and the rhinos. They never touched you. I mean, they knew you were on their territory, but because they were free, they're not dangerous animals. I mean, what is your take on zoos then? Now that you've done so much wildlife.
I'm definitely not a big fan of zoos. I can't remember visiting one in the past 20 or maybe even 30 years. I'm pretty much against, especially for big animals. This said, I don't really know what would be my opinion on aquariums and those places where you have tiny
Mm.
animals that in the wild have a very small territory. Whether it's okay or not, I'm not very sure about how I feel about it. But I definitely don't like to see an elephant or an orca or a gorilla in confined in the zoo. This is a big no-no for me.
I think someone will always say, "Well, I can't go to Africa. I don't have the money to go to Africa, or I just can't afford it." Well, affordability is the reason why zoos are great for this sort of stuff. But then I get why there is zoos, and obviously it allows people to see the animals if they can't get to these sort of countries. But I'm with you when it comes to, yes, you know, they shouldn't be, locked, especially the big ones, as well, like the gorillas and stuff. They should be in the wild. They're not designed to be, they're sure they're definitely going to be drugged and everything to make sure that they don't go wild. And I don't think that's right. And I think, again, the less, I mean, it took years and years and years before they stopped using animals in circuses. So maybe eventually they might say to, another argument is like rhino poaching and, rhinos being killed. I don't know whether you saw the other day, actually, in Botswana there was like 100 elephants that got killed. Um, Someone might say, well, if they were in zoos, we can preserve them and we can, keep their population and they're not going to become extinct. But then, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't really buy into the conservation role of zoos. That might very well be scientifically studied, but I don't think it's any positive to maintain life in confinement because humans are destroying it. So basically, the reason why you would want to protect rhinos or elephants is because you have poachers. And I don't think the solution is to keep elephants or rhino behind bars. It's rather, I would rather getting rid of poaching. So I don't really want to see zoos as a solution to a problem that should be solved differently. Regarding the point you made of affordability, it's obvious. People without means can't have access to wildlife, can't have access to a lot of amazing experience, going to the ocean or diving or traveling or all of this. But it doesn't mean that any other being or animal should suffer to compensate for this economical inequality. This is obviously, in my humble opinion.
Well said. I think I sort of agree with what you're saying there. Your website itself, which you can buy prints. Um, how long has it been going for? Do you plan on sort of making it bigger than what it is right now?
I would love for it to be bigger, but it's not in short-term plans. I've always wanted to share my photography because I feel it's a way to have a feeling of a place. For me, a proper photography, you don't just see what's on the picture, but you feel how you would feel if you were in a specific place. So I've always liked to keep it for me as a memory of my travels, but also to share it with other people. I try to use all the platforms like 500 Pixel and Flickr and Facebook and Instagram, but that didn't really work for me in the sense that I needed to have my own space in a way. So I
Yeah.
created my own website, and I decided to start monetizing photography, in the lack of a better word, just in order for this activity to sustain itself. I don't pretend to live off photography. I think it's very difficult when you're a traveler or a wildlife photographer. But at least to sustain this activity, photography and travel photography is very expensive. It's a secret for no one. So I started selling prints in order to be able to continue traveling with those sales.
You obviously said that you used your own website, and that's where you can get your bulk of your work. Social media obviously is a big place where you can potentially get noticed for your work. You don't necessarily post as much on social media as other people might do. Do you class yourself as a traveler who's a photographer rather than someone that's just a content creator? And I've done pieces with other people about this where, you know, you could lose yourself if you start just posting stuff because you know someone's going to pay you $1.
Yeah, I think if I wanted to be paid for my photography, I would probably do weddings or food photography. I see myself as a photographer first, and not as a content creator. But it doesn't mean I have to be a miserable artist and not live off it. If people do enjoy my art, I'm very happy to get prints sold. But my priority is to focus on the quality of the photography rather than the bankability of the photography. I don't want to take photography because I know they will sell. I like to take photography as I feel they should be taken, and then if someone likes them, then I'm very happy again for people to buy it. I am not too present on social media as you highlighted for that very reason, in the sense that I don't really want my photography to be quickly consumed, but I'd rather to attract people that are interested in photography, that would like to spend time in watching nice photography, to come to my website and spend a lot of time on there and see what I have to offer.
Very good point you just made there, where you don't want to be seen as, obviously you can do it. In your pictures, from what I've seen, like for example, that gorilla picture that I saw, there's a story behind it. And I like profiles really, and the guest I've asked to come on is when you start telling stories from your photography. And I think that's more meaningful than someone just dishing out constantly contents. And you think to yourself, well, what's the story behind it? You see, if you're just constantly just rolling out just pictures after pictures after pictures, or you know, there's nothing behind it. You see. So I think sometimes when you post one picture, I think that's more meaningful than, as I just said to you, someone rolling out about 100 pictures, because I would rather wait for the next picture to come out. I'm like, you know what? I'm waiting for David's next post because he's got some stories to tell you. See, the pandemic has been, you know, hard on a lot of people. What have you sort of learnt from it, sort of on a career-wise, personally? What have you learnt from it?
I spent the lockdown in Uganda, where I was planning to work on assignment. So there's been a lot of frustration to be on location, but without being able to take pictures. I think as many photographers, I took the time to go back and edit previous shots. I took the time to work on my website. So this is very much offline work done. but I think, and also like many people, I saw the crisis as a warning concerning our lifestyle, and I started thinking about my impact as a traveler. Traveling nowadays is you do a lot of flying, you take pictures, everything goes very, very quick. You can fly somewhere, stay 2 days, stay 3 days, come back with a nice picture that you share. Or we are inspiring people in traveling to different places, and I started thinking that, yeah, flying from place to place for the sake of a good shot was maybe not such a good idea. And also, as a photographer, I felt like I had the responsibility somehow to inspire to travel in a place rather than another. And you could either induce mass tourism in posting nice shots of Santorini, or you could encourage sustainable tourism through local traveling, and this is a bit what orientated my next traveling plans.
Exactly the same with me. There has to be an urge to go somewhere and to do it for. You can't. I couldn't just get on. I know some borders have opened up. I can't just go to those countries because of the sake of it. There has to be something behind it for me, always. Potentially in the next 10 years, people will get sick of what they're seeing and thinking, you know what, we'd rather see something more authentic. We'd rather see David's picture, because it's so authentic, So hopefully,
I would love if people could start thinking like this, Shabs. I would be the first delighted.
You've mentioned Africa. Where are some of your favorite places then?
South America, Brazil. I lived there for 5 years, and I don't think I've seen a tenth of what it had to offer.
Why is Brazil has been so impactful in your life?
As a country, it's so diverse and so rich. Not just in terms of nature, but you had loads of different cultures, loads of different colors, really, loads of different music and people. It's really a country that I enjoy traveling to.
So if you were to go back and live somewhere, would it be Brazil?
Hard to answer this one, Shebs. I don't think I could have. I don't think I have a favorite place to live. I definitely enjoyed some traveling better than others. I'm more a nature person than city person. So if a country has to offer amazing architecture, Dubai is a good example. Dubai is the architecture is stunning, but this is not my field. This is not my vibe. So I'd rather go to a country that is full of nature. South America is one place. Africa is another. So this is where I would usually like to travel.
Do you do? Is it solo traveling you do, or do you go with someone, or is it with a group, or how do you travel?
I've done a bit of solo travel, which is very good for taking decisions, because the decision is quickly taken, but I get a bit bored sometimes. Like the time could be very long if you on an evening, for example, if you're traveling solo. So my best setup is two people. I enjoy traveling with my girlfriend Sophie, or with my friend Adrian. We've done a lot of travels together, and but no groups. I'm really not a big fan of having to manage everyone's tantrum. So it's either solo or two people max. Yeah.
Great that you said that you're in a relationship, because when I've spoken to people on my show in the past, the majority of the travelers are mainly single, and so it's good that you've got a balance in that. I mean, does your girlfriend obviously travel quite a bit and is into traveling as well? Then
yes, she does. Traveled together the past 3 years.
You mentioned before about some of the foods what is some of your favorite food, would you say?
I wouldn't pinpoint one unique food experience, as I had many. I could pinpoint bad food experience. This definitely. I remember being invited to a barbecue in Vietnam where they would grill living animals, shrimps, or that's pretty much the face I made in that restaurant, and I became a vegetarian shortly after. This was really a traumatizing experience.
Wow! So from that just one experience, you decided to, you know what, this is too much.
It was a process, obviously, when you make those big changes in your life, but Southeast Asia and the way animals are treated was definitely the turning point. This barbecue evening was one of them. I had a couple of visits of live animals markets, which ended up was my decision making. But yeah, that was maybe a couple of months or 3 months before, and that definitely helped taking that decision.
I've not eaten beef for 20 odd years. I saw a cow in front of me sort of get slaughtered to be eaten, and ever since then I just remember the smell and everything that put me off eating, cow meat for the rest of my life. And I'd like to, I've tried going sort of vegan, veggie, and I go through a period and I just go back, and I think ideally, a veggie life or a vegan life is a great way forward. And I love animals as well, the wildlife and everything. Just a quick fire round, just to make it a bit more fun. What's one thing that you can't travel without?
My scarf. It's good juju. Good luck.
And when you travel, do you prefer hotels or hostels or Airbnbs?
Definitely not Airbnbs. It would be 3 days hostels for meeting people and experience, and 1 day hotel to have a me time.
Would you say you like street food or restaurant food?
Street food.
Good answer. And lastly, are you a wine man or are you a beer man?
I'm a wine man. I'm French, Shabs. Come on.
Of course, absolutely. We've come to the end of our chat.
Great.
David, it's been
Thanks very
amazing
much.
having you. No problem. It's been amazing having you on, and I think you've highlighted quite a lot of things there where hopefully people have taken away and think, you know what, he has a point there. So I appreciate you coming on, and I always say this world is too small. I'm sure we'll cross our paths and we'll meet. And yeah, and thank you very much for coming on, David.
Thanks, Shabs, for having me. Have a good afternoon.
There you go, guys. That was David. He's got a remarkable story there, especially about the wildlife and the wildlife photography. It's definitely inspired me to go out there and take more pictures. That's it for another additional 15 minutes. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. Until next time, bye.